I'm going to let some audio speak for itself. Whether you want to hear it or not, whether you want, whatever side you come down on, it doesn't really matter. The audio speaks for itself. Let me start with Jack and Ted first. Two friends of mine and great morning radio in Tampa, Florida, WFLA. Here's Jack and Ted this morning with Newt Gingrich.
Claiming that you are a progressive, that your favorite presidents are FD, or let's see.
This is where they're saying that you're accusing him of these things.
Teddy Roosevelt, and then you said the greatest president of the century is FDR. And what is your response to that vis-a-vis conservatives?
Well, that is baloney.
That's a pretty good one.
I don't know what.
He put me in my place because it's baloney that he thinks that FDR is the greatest president of the 20th century.
Wait, is it pious baloney? Are you on the pious baloney
I might
train?
be.
might
Can you
be.
play?
Yes.
Can you play it again? Because I want you to hear just beyond the baloney part too. But I want you to hear the question here from Jack again.
Claiming that you are a progressive, that your favorite presidents are let's see, Teddy Roosevelt, and then you said the greatest president of the century is FDR. And what is your response to that vis-a-vis conservatives?
Well, that is baloney.
That's a pretty good one.
I don't know what Glenn Beck's problem is, but he obviously has never read my writing. I've written 3 novels about George Washington, 4 novels that involve Abraham Lincoln. The fact is, the greatest American president is Washington. The second greatest American president is Lincoln. If you measure his World War II achievements, FDR is an extraordinary leader. We defeat Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan in 3 years and 8 months. It is an extraordinary act of leadership. I disagree with you about the New Deal. I disagree with you about his liberal policies. But as a war leader, he's extraordinary.
Okay. I'm not going to defend this. First of all, I will say I have read Newt Gingrich's book, his books. I don't claim that he doesn't write books about George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. I know because I have several of them autographed to me from him. So I've read them. I know his work. I've talked to him about his work.
Yeah,
I know Newt Gingrich. I know him.
But it's baloney what you said
let's go
about
through
him and FDR.
Let's go through this. He says that the greatest American president of all time is George Washington. The second greatest is Abraham Lincoln. And if you only look at World War II and the accomplishment of defeating the Nazis, it was an extraordinary leader that did that in FDR. Remember that. He is not saying he's the greatest American president of the 20th century. He is not saying that he's the greatest American president of all time. He is not saying that as he says it here.
I'll give you my biased answer, which always gets me in trouble on the right. No one is FDR. FDR is the greatest practitioner of self-government.
Stop. I want you to hear. He's got caveats, at least in the first 10 or 12. He's the greatest practitioner of self-government. That's pretty amazing.
Especially when he himself just said he had problems with his liberal policies.
Right. He has problems.
How is he a practitioner of self-government?
Because that's what defeated the Nazis.
No, self-government didn't defeat the Nazis.
I guess not.
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Certainly in the 20th century, and maybe in American history. And FDR, as governor of New York in good times, was very progressive.
The greatest politician of the 20th century in this country, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Okay, greatest politician that time.
Greatest politician of the 20th century.
20th
Well, that's
century.
different than
That's
the greatest
different.
president,
And
because one of the greatest politicians of the 20th century, I think, is Bill Clinton.
Right, so that's a little bit
I don't
different.
think he's the best president.
Although
different.
we should also point out that the reason he was praising him in the last clip was because in good times he was very progressive,
and
end
he could
quote.
get things done.
Yeah.
Okay. In good time.
The greatest liberal democratic president of the 20th century.
Stop.
Now it's the latest liberal democratic?
Liberal democratic of the 20th century. So you could say, well, that he would go to, in the 20th century, he would say the greatest Republican would be Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
He doesn't. He goes to Theodore Roosevelt. But so another caveat.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The greatest Democratic president of the 20th century, and in my judgment, the greatest president of the 20th century.
Stop.
Oh.
Now, wait a minute.
First
Hang
it's
on.
greatest Democratic president, then it's the greatest president.
No, that's baloney.
Of the 20th century.
No, that's baloney.
No, I'm sorry, he just said.
No, that's baloney.
But wait, he just said the greatest.
The greatest president because he won the war. I'm sure that's what he's going to say.
No, Democratic president, and in his judgment, the greatest president of the 20th century.
Only because of the war. Because he just said earlier on Jack and Ted that it's baloney. He doesn't know what my problem is. He's written books about George Washington.
Yeah,
well, you know what?
problem?
I've written books about Woodrow Wilson. I've written books about the progressives. I've written books about Van Jones. That doesn't mean anything. I can write all kinds of books. That doesn't mean anything. What you're on record saying, sir, is that you love the policies of Theodore Roosevelt, the policies of FDR. You are on record over and over and over again. If anybody wants to look at it, we'll play some more clips.
The most effective president of the 20th century, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FDR is the greatest political leader of the 20th century.
Who's your favorite modern-day politician?
FDR. And if you go back and look at somebody like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he is such a dominating figure because he actually got things done.
Mm-hmm.
Not the war.
If you look at FDR defending America as a positive, optimistic civilization in 1933, John's father was one of the great...
Stop. 1933? The war didn't start till 1941.
No, but he knew the war was coming, and that's why he was
a positive,
here enough to be
optimistic country. In 1933, we were only defending it inside our own country. He was selling the New Deal in 1933. But remember, he hates the New Deal.
Stalwarts of the New Deal, a man who, as an FDR Democrat, created modern America.
Created America.
With the New Deal.
Wait a minute. He's praising somebody who was a stalwart of the New Deal that created modern America. Hang on. I think we have another candidate that has said almost those same things.
We do. Luckily, we're getting bipartisan here because, to paraphrase a little bit here, the president, because it's a longer quote, President Obama, we contribute to programs like Medicare and Social Security, unemployment insurance, and Medicaid. We are a better country because of these commitments. I'll go further. We would not be a great country without those commitments.
So we have created, the New Deal has created modern America. Well, I agree with that. But I don't think that's a good thing. But Newt Gingrich, no matter what he says, is on record over and over and over and over and over again saying it. No?
That's baloney.
Oh, it's
no,
baloney.
That's baloney.
Highest baloney.
I don't know what your problem is, but
All
that's
right.
baloney.
Okay, well, the problem is the tape of him
saying
it.
There are some problems.
Saying it over 2 decades, over and over again. That's my only problem.
I mean, he did say...
And I think that John and his father represent a tradition that we all have to recognize and respect, and recognize that the America we are now going to try to lead grew from that tradition and is part of that great heritage.
Hey, stop. The great heritage of the New Deal?
Of the New Deal.
Of the New Deal. That what we're going to lead grew from the New Deal, and that's where we're coming from.
But the good thing is it's only FDR.
And okay,
you know,
but it's
that's
only
the
FDR,
good thing, just FDR.
And he does not like the New Deal.
And, okay, Woodrow Wilson.
Wilson's speeches still work. I mean, I'm frankly a realpolitik Wilsonian.
Oh.
I think that you can talk about realism, but to be an American, realism is idealistic.
Oh, you mean like the speech, the realpolitik Wilsonian speech that still works today, where he's praising the revolution, the glorious revolution in Russia, and how they are a great partner for peace. Maybe that particular speech that still works?
No, that's baloney.
No, that's baloney.
I don't know what your problem is.
All right, because a realpolitik Wilsonian is looking to the United Nations, or in Wilson's time, it would have been the League of Nations, which gives us great hope. And that's not a conservative idea. That's not a small government idea. But that's baloney if you think he said it.
And it's just FDR and
Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson.
And in this sense, I guess I'm a Theodore Roosevelt Republican. In fact, if I were going to characterize on health where I come from, I'm a Theodore Roosevelt Republican in that I believe government can lead and that regulatory leading is okay. Roosevelt set up the Food and Drug Act.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to health, because that's why he's on the record for 20 years wanting a government health insurance. That's what he's wanted. What you now have, well, you don't have it yet. You're paying for it, but you don't have it yet. What you now are about to get What they have now in Massachusetts is what he's been angling for 20 years. Everybody throws Romney under the bus. Newt Gingrich is far worse. He's been saying he wants to do it federally for a long time. And when it comes to health, I mean, he categorizes himself really as Theodore Roosevelt. And Theodore Roosevelt is the first person that said we should have universal health care.
No, that's baloney.
Oh, is that baloney?
I don't know what your problem is because
my problem is just the tapes of him saying it.
But it's just FDR. It's just Wilson.
All right.
It's just Theodore Roosevelt, and that's about it.
We're in South Carolina. South Carolina in the Revolutionary War had a young 13-year-old named Andrew Jackson. He was sabred by a British officer and wore a scar his whole life.
Okay.
Andrew Jackson had a pretty clear-cut idea about America's enemies. Killed them.
Kill him. And that's a good thing because at the time our enemy was, you remember the Soviet Union with Stalin.
No, it was the Native American. No, it was Jackson.
Sure it was Nazism.
No. It was Jackson that that was the one that drove Davy Crockett to the Alamo. He was so disgusted with Andrew Jackson that an American hero went to the Alamo because he couldn't take it anymore. Because everything that he had promised the Native American, Andrew Jackson destroyed. So the enemy that he's now praising, and Andrew Jackson had a pretty good idea how to deal with the enemies, kill him. He's just talking about the Native American. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. South Carolina, you did a good thing. I wholeheartedly endorse Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, I don't know why he was.
I don't know what my problem is with him.
And
you don't have one now,
right?
No, I
don't
don't
have one.
No,
now.
I don't. I apologize because I didn't hear Newt Gingrich
the baloney.
and what he was the baloney argument.
Of what you were.
I didn't hear the baloney argument against the. How long is that? Just play the FDR thing in its entirety. I won't interrupt. Let's just listen to Pat just not looking for everything, just going out one morning and saying, what can you find on him with FDR? Here it is. Start it. It's 18 after, 15 seconds. Mark.
I'll give you my biased answer, which always gets me in trouble on the right. No one is FDR. FDR is the greatest practitioner of self-government, certainly in the 20th century, and maybe in American history. And FDR, as governor of New York in good times, was very progressive. The greatest politician of the 20th century in this country, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The greatest liberal democratic president of the 20th century, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The greatest democratic president of the 20th century, and in my judgment, the greatest president of the 20th century. The most effective president of the 20th century, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FDR is the greatest political leader of the 20th century.
Who's your favorite modern-day politician?
FDR. And if you go back and look at somebody like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he is such a dominating figure because he actually got things done. If you look at FDR defending America as a positive, optimistic civilization in 1933, John's father was one of the great stalwarts of the New Deal, a man who, as an FDR Democrat, created modern America. And I think that John and his father represent a tradition that we all have to recognize and respect, and recognize that the America we are now going to try to lead grew from that tradition and is part of that great heritage. And what we're talking about is a transition at least as big as, if not bigger than, the New Deal.
So that's only a minute and a half.
That's only 90 seconds.
FDR clips.
That's 1 minute and 29 seconds.
That's baloney, and I don't know what your problem is.
And those are just clips from, just that it's no big deal. Don't say that this politician is like others. And he just doesn't know what my problem is. I will tell you that I've had network executives tell me not to talk about FDR. Don't talk about FDR as a progressive. FDR was one of the greatest presidents. Was he? He was a progressive. The New Deal destroyed us. People don't look at him that way. Oh, well, maybe they should. No, just focus on Obama. That category seems to run among a lot of big government progressive conservatives. It's interesting. And a lot of liberals, too. They seem to have the same point of view on progressives. Food Insurance is our sponsor this half hour. New Year's resolutions and anticipation of what 2012 will bring. Have you made your New Year's resolution yet? Are you still doing it? We started the George Washington, being George Washington